Hey, welcome to another Flare Court Media camera gear thing. I'm Jason, and today we are looking at the Ulanzi camera cooling fan. It's a pretty uneventful name, but says exactly what it is. And what this is a fan to help keep your camera cool. It's an inexpensive alternative to some of the more pricey options from the actual camera manufacturers. For instance, the Fujifilm that's designed for the X-H2S and X-H2 cameras that retails for $199. And this, right now, as of filming, is about $35. So we're going to open this up and test it out on a couple cameras to see if it indeed helps with the overheating problem. I'm not going to make a big event out of unboxing. It's pretty simple. You got a box in a box, my favorite, not. Some instructions in all kinds of different languages. I've already looked through them. There's not a whole lot there. The qualified certificate, not certificate of quality, qualified certificate. A USB-A to USB-C charging cable, and of course the Ulanzi camera cooling fan. The Ulanzi cooling fan obviously attaches via a spring. You just place it into your camera, push it in there, and assuming that there's enough of a small enough gap for your camera, it'll stay right in there. The air goes in this way and out this way, where it comes out through these just gaps that naturally happen as you place your camera against it. Only has one button. If you long press it for a couple seconds, it'll turn on, and you've got battery percentage. It came half charged. I fully charged it. You've got a 0, a 1, and a 2, and those are the state of the fan speed. And then you've got cam 25 degrees Celsius listed, which this has a thermometer in it. I believe it's that thing right in the middle there. I can't figure out any way to make that Fahrenheit. I don't think it really matters. We're going to test to see how accurate it is, but I think really what it's supposed to do is tell you if your camera is getting close to turn off time. Most cameras do give you a warning when it's about to turn off or overheat, but maybe having an actual temperature, assuming it's accurate, will also help. And to turn it on, you just push that once, and it's now on the 1 setting. And then if you push it again, it goes up faster to a 2 setting. And one more push, and it's going to come to a stop. And then, according to the instructions, if you wait 3 minutes, the display will turn off, or you can long press it and it'll fully turn off. I've got the Ulanzi sitting on my desk to record the ambient temperature of that surface. It looks like it's about 22 degrees Celsius. Got an infrared thermometer that will fire right next to it. 23.8. So it's within 1.5 degrees, we'll say. And then we'll check the camera once that gets warmed up. Ulanzi's Amazon listing for this claims it to be 58 grams. However, when I weighed it on my kitchen scale, it came up to 77 grams. The upgraded has the spring, whereas the old one, it appears, used suction cups. So you actually put a piece of film on the back of your camera right here, and then the suction cups would stick on there. And so maybe that's the one that's 58 grams. Let's move on to testing with the actual cameras. But before I do that, if you're finding this video helpful or at least entertaining, I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. That way other people find my videos when they're looking for this type of thing. Or if you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate if you subscribe. That way you get notified on your feed when I release a new video. And I can use those higher subscriber numbers to try and get sponsorships, which means that I can afford to make videos more often. But at the very least, thank you so much for watching. Let's go on to the cameras. There are 3 cameras I'm going to test with this today. The first is the Fuji H2S. This can record at 8K, and I can attest that yes, it does overheat, especially if there's no air movement or you're in a hot environment. The second is the Sony ZV-1. This is a vlogging camera, and it also is prone to overheat. And this to me seems like a prime candidate for the type of camera that this fan was designed for. This is a small pocketable vlogging camera, and this is a small pocketable fan. The final one is a beast. It's the Nikon Z8. This can also record at 8K, 12-bit, ProRes, all the things. This definitely overheats. Now, the way that the fan is designed obviously to use the spring on a camera where the screen can come out, because you can just pop it in like that and there it stays. You can tell there's not a whole lot of air movement, but the name brand fans do the same thing. They just blow some air and then it comes out the sides. So the Fuji and also the Sony are perfect candidates for this because of the way it's designed. The Nikon, however, does not have an articulating screen, fully articulating screen. It has a partial, it has more of a photography camera articulating screen. So you can see we can't fit that in there anywhere. But what I'm interested in is if we put the fan somewhere in there, figure it out, and just blow some air on the sensor, if this little $35 fan is worth it and will actually help keep the Nikon cool. If after hearing the parameters you're saying to yourself, boy, that could be something that could just be showed as a spreadsheet, you bet it could. And there is a chapter marker down below that will take you right to the end of the video where you can look at that yourself. Or if you're saying, boy, this shouldn't be a video at all, I could just look at all of this on a website article. You're also in luck, because for nearly every video I release, I also create an article on my website with the pertinent details. FlareCourtMedia.com. I have a link in the video description down below to all of the information from this video. I've got the Nikon set at ProRes 422 HQ 10-bit SDR. You might say, why aren't you doing the 12-bit ProRes or the NRAW? Well, that's because even with a 512 gigabyte CF Express card in this, I would have only gone about 12 minutes. I'm not sure that's long enough to overheat it. So at the 422 level, it's still 8K, but I should get about 33 minutes available recording time. So hopefully that's long enough to get it to overheat. On the Fuji, I have it set to 8K as well, 30 frames per second, 420 10-bit, so 720 megabits per second. That's its highest camera setting. And lastly, the Sony running at 4K, which is the highest resolution it can, 30p, 100 megabits per second. So that's also its highest setting. So I'm going to run all of these cameras at once. We've got the time here so I can tell when it dies, as well as the current temperature in here, 74.7 degrees. There is no fan. There's barely any moving air. The register is kind of doing a house circulation, but it's not blowing directly on the cameras. So this is the worst case scenario, the scenario we're trying to avoid, which is the camera overheating because it's just not getting any air. So let's fire all of these off. Here we go. And there they go. So I'm going to step out of frame and record this and come back, and hopefully they will have overheated, because if they don't, then I'm going to have a really hard time testing this. And the Nikon just ended. Got a hot card with a warning, and it just stopped recording completely. Okay, this is given the I'm hot warning. $44. This has been at a heat warning for quite a while. 19 seconds, 18 seconds. Okay, so it's about to die. 49 Celsius, 51. So that one died. 51 degrees Celsius. And then there was one. 50 Celsius, 51. So this is as hot, at least externally, as the Sony, but it's still kicking. This environment might be okay for this. Usually I have the door shut, a lot of other lights running, and it cooks in here about 80 degrees, and then it overheats. So I'm going to stop the Fuji and set it up in an environment that's a little warmer so we can test this in a reasonable amount of time. While I wait for the cameras to cool down so I can test it with the fan, let's take a look at the noise level. When I turn it on, it seems pretty quiet, but let's get an actual reading. So get a room noise level real fast. So the room is sitting about 35 decibels, which they called a quiet rustle. It's actually kind of loud. I've got the fan on my Ninja 5 running up there. I've got a server reformatting a hard drive clicking away in the background. So it's not really a super quiet room. But let's turn on the fan and see what it goes up to. So 43, which is a quiet whisper, not too bad. And let's kick it up to the highest level. 46, which again is also a quiet whisper. And that would be roughly what you could expect by having it on your camera, recording into a microphone on camera, since the phone is right next to it and also getting the vibrations through the table. If I pick it up, it goes up maybe 1 extra decibel. It looks like the hertz is about 700 hertz. It's definitely something you could use noise cancellation software to remove from your audio track if it was noticeable. It may not even be getting picked up from my microphone. I'll be quiet and you can see. And again, that's on the highest level. And I also wanted to check the stability. So when this is running and I move it around, the fan does make a little bit of noise, like that the axis, the bearings, whatever you want to call it, is slightly changing. But it doesn't sound like anything's going to break. And then let's check the stability. So it's firmly attached. We'll kind of so I had to get pretty aggressive with that. The amount of real estate the fan has to purchase on the camera is going to make a big difference. It fell out a little faster on my Fuji, but any normal amount of movement, panning, tilting, that sort of thing, even pointing to the sky, it's holding on quite well. The first camera to cool down is the Sony ZV-1, and I've determined it's cooled down because I've zapped all around the frame and it's the same temperature all across. So that means there's no hot spots anymore. The temperature in here is still right at about 75 degrees, which is where the last test ran. So let's attach the fan and turn it on. And I'm going to do level 1 instead of level 2. The reason for level 1 is if level 1's able to improve the timeout until overheating, then level 2 would definitely do that. And so I'm more interested in level 1, which is quieter, battery's going to run longer. Yeah, so here we go. Let's hit start and we'll find out if we get that overheating warning. Another 30 minutes or so, maybe we won't get an overheating at all. Check back in a little bit. And to note, at the start here, the fan is saying the camera body is 30 degrees Celsius. So we'll keep an eye on that too. So the camera's been running for 56 minutes, so much longer than it was when it was without the fan. In fact, we're getting close to the battery running out. The fan says it's only at 34 degrees Celsius, and if I recall, it was at least 50 degrees Celsius when it overheated. All right, the battery is just about dead. 34 degrees Celsius is the temperature. I'm going to get my infrared thermometer, so as soon as this dies, I'll pull the fan off and we'll check the temperature to see how accurate that 34 degrees is. But I think we can safely say that the fan has, in 75-degree weather temperature, has eliminated the overheating. So chalk 1 for the Ulanzi fan. And oh, there it just went. Okay, so I'm going to check the temperature. It says 34 degrees Celsius, so let's pull the fan off. 37 degrees Celsius, 29 degrees, 31, 36, 28, 39. So that 34 that it was showing was pretty much the average. Again, I think it's that little dot right there, but that was pretty much the average of the camera. So this went 1 hour and 3 minutes and then died. So the overheating, not a problem once we added the fan on low. And the battery says it still has 2 bars remaining. So I'm guessing somewhere around 50%, give or take 10 probably. So great success. Now I'm going to move on to the Nikon Z8. I've zoomed in here so you can see how the Nikon articulating screen works. So when you bring it down, there's still a plate in there because it can pivot out. And so hopefully you can see there's screen, plate, and then the camera body way back there. So the best I can figure to do with this fan is to set it right there so air is blowing in to the cavity behind there. It's not ideal, it's obviously not locked in place, but on a tripod it could feasibly sit there. So we're going to run the test again on the Nikon with the fan in this configuration and see if we can get some more time out of that. Something I haven't mentioned yet is the fact that this can run while you're charging it. According to the spec sheet, it has a 200 milliamp hour battery, which should get you 85 minutes on setting 1 or 70 minutes on setting 2. I'll do a test of that later and give you the results now. I was impressed with the battery life of the fan. While it didn't quite hit what was advertised, it came pretty close. The 200 milliamp hour battery is advertised at 85 minutes for level 1. And I measured 76 minutes, so a difference of 9 minutes less in actual time. And then the level 2 is advertised at 70 minutes, and I got 59 minutes, so a difference of 11 minutes. But still, you're getting about an hour's worth of runtime at least on this, which is pretty good considering most camera battery life is right around an hour as well if you're lucky. And also, remember, this can be plugged in while it's charging, so possibly infinite. Speaking of charging, it does charge at 1 amp, so you don't need a powerful charger for this, just basically anything will get it charging at its full speed. And I measured it from 0 to 100% at exactly 70 minutes. So not the fastest thing, but it gets the job done. Because the battery is only about 50% capacity after the Sony test, I'm going to leave it plugged in while we run the Nikon test. When you plug it in and turn it on, it does ramp up a little faster and then it settles into audibly the same level. Whereas if you unplug it and turn it on, it ramps up to the same audibly level. So I think it's running at roughly the same level regardless if it's plugged in or not. So I just kicked off the recording on both of these. The fan is reading 28 degrees Celsius, but that's not pressed up against the camera body, so it's probably reading the air gap between the two. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm getting the hot card warning with the thermometer here. And hot card, whoop, there it goes, recording interrupted, please wait. So clearly the fan did not do a whole lot. The fact that it says hot card on it makes me think that, you know, it's the CF Express card that's overheating and not the camera itself. So I cannot get this camera to overheat in 75-degree temperature using the settings that I have the storage capacity for. Really needs like 80 or 85 degree temperature for it to overheat. All right, so I wasn't able to get it to overheat with the H.265 720 megabits per second 422, and I wasn't able to get overheat with the ProRes because I didn't have enough space. So I have now hotboxed myself in my office. It's up to 85 degrees, which actually is closer than you'd think to what I normally film in during the summer. This room just soaks in the heat, doors shut for noise, and I cook in here. So I'm hoping that this will do what we need. I'm going to try now on the H.265 422 720 megabits per second setting to overheat this camera. I sure hope you were still recording. I left the room because it's too hot. This camera overheated and stopped, though that camera may have stopped too. So not quite sure if I have the time or not. We'll find out in editing. However, proven that, ooh, that is hot. We have proven that this does overheat. Yeah, it must have overheated quite a while ago because it's kind of cooling back down. I think it was up to 54 degrees at one point. So, going to let this cool down back to the 85 degree temperature room and then stick the fan on it. I just checked the duration of the recording. It was 55 minutes and 25 seconds. So that's the time to beat. Okie dokie. The camera's back down to temperature. I checked by running the sensor over the body. It is at 32 all over places, so there's no hot spots anymore. So now it's time to put the fan on. And if the fan helps, then it will be about 55 minutes. So we're going to put it on level 1 again. Yes, it's spinning. It's really quiet. And here we go. Well, good news so far. We just hit the 55 minutes and 6 seconds, and I see no overheating warning on the camera display. Battery's getting close to dead, so I think just like the other one, we will let this run until it dies, and then take a temperature check compared to what the fan says it is. She finally died. So this is reporting 40 degrees, and let's do a quick check of this. 44 degrees across the board, it looks like. So not quite perfectly accurate, but pretty close. Welcome to those of you who jumped ahead in the video to the final results. I jumped ahead about a month and a half, and my hair still isn't any better. However, I did get all of the data compiled, and let's go over it real fast right now. So with the Fuji X-H2, it ran for 55 minutes in a 85 degree room. I was not able to get to overheat in the 75 degree room like the other two cameras. It performed better than I was expecting. So 55 minutes without the fan, overheated. Once I stuck the fan on it, we ended up going 77 minutes, and it was the battery dying that caused the test to end. So the fan on level 1 in the 85 degree room allowed the Fuji to basically run infinitely until the battery died. Moving on to the Nikon Z8. Remember, this is the one that we could not put the fan in properly, so we were just kind of blowing some air in there. This ran for 12 minutes in the 75 degree room, so that's not very long. But once we stuck the fan on there in level 1, just blowing some air in there, got 2 extra minutes before it overheated. Unfortunately, I really wish they had the fully articulating screen on this camera so that we could take advantage of fans like this and get more runtime out of the horsepower that's in this. But unfortunately, it's not set up that way. It was both times the CF Express card that caused the overheating. So maybe leaving the door open, though I don't know if it can run with the door open. Maybe that would allow this to run longer. But either way, we got 2 extra minutes from the fan. Lastly, the Sony ZV-1 ran for 38 minutes in the 75-degree room before it overheated and turned itself off. Once we stuck the fan on there, we got 62 minutes. And again, just like the Fuji, it was the battery dying that caused the test to end. So the Ulanzi fan basically gave this infinite runtime as well until the battery died. So overall, I am quite impressed with this little device. As I said earlier in the video, this costs about $35, though now being a month later, I do see that they are running some sales on this sometimes, so you might even be able to pick it up for cheaper. Speaking of picking it up, if you are interested in getting one, I have an affiliated link in the video description down below. Using it doesn't cost you a single penny more. I just get your support for you using my link, and it helps support the channel. I also purchased this myself. No money changed hands, and I did not ever talk to Ulanzi as of the recording of this video. So this is 100% sponsored by me. If you're interested in things like the Sony ZV-1, why don't you check out next my video on where I took basically my full setup that is behind the camera right now and put it with this small rig and turned it into the ultimate portable video recording setup. But until next time, I'm doing what I love, keep doing what you love. Thanks for watching. Am I still recording? Okay, recording on the SSD now because these long recordings fill up your memory cards.